right, hello and welcome. So, last video showed you how to install Shodan.io. This video is going to show you how to use the tool we just installed, right? How to use that via the command line. So real briefly, a lot of you are probably used to using Shodan via the graphic user interface, this website. Probably type in something like Apache, hit enter, right, and see all the Apache systems. It probably takes a couple seconds to load, and then it tells you, hey, here's how many Apache systems are in the US, Germany, Japan, etc. Right? However, we can also do a lot of this stuff in the command line, right? For example, if I go to Kali, right, I now have this Shodan command. I showed you last video how to install it. If I do Shodan, and I do -- help, I can see a list of keywords we can use here, right? The first one I'm going to show is count, right? I'm going to show you how to count things like Apache systems, Nginx systems, right? All that, right? So I'm going to do Control L to clear. Shodan, count. I'm just going to put in the word Apache. And when I hit enter, right, Shodan's going to go through. It's going to count every single system it scanned that is deemed as an Apache system, and it's going to spit out this number of 25 million systems. Now, I can build off of this. As you see here, I could put in ports. I'm going to do port. Let's do 443. I'm going to check how many of these Apache systems have port 443 or HTTPS up, right? In this case, it is 8 million of the 25 million from previously. However, we could keep adding flags. I'm going to hit the up arrow one more time, and I'm going to put country, and I only want to see the US counts. Right, so I'm going to do country US, and this should narrow us down quite a bit. So I put Shodan, once again, count to count all the systems, Apache, the type of system we want, which ports are open in which country. Now we see of the 8 million Apache machines with 443 open, 2.8 million of those are in the US, right? 2.9 if you round up. Right, pretty cool. What else can we do with Shodan? Well, we just showed you how to get a general overview, and you might ask, well, why is that important? Well, if someone's creating malware, or if you're trying to defend certain systems and come up with specific patches, right, it's important to know how many systems are out there. Right, this is relevant from a high level. However, if you want to go a bit more specific, Shodan can be used to look at specific IPs. Right, I'm going to do Control L. For example, right, let's say Reddit.com. I'm going to ping Reddit to get its IP. Right, all right, got it. Let's say I want to figure out some information about this IP. Similar to an Nmap scan, what I could do is I could do Shodan. I'm going to do host. I'm going to put in Reddit's IP address. Right? And as I said before, it's going to function somewhat similar to an Nmap scan. It's going to tell me what ports are open. Right? And we see port 80 is open, which is HTTP, and 443, which is more recently HTTPS. Right? Keep in mind, a couple years ago, this probably wouldn't have been open. 443. HTTPS was a relatively newish push. We also see things like city, right? The city that the server's in, country, organization, how many ports are open in total, right? So Shodan's pretty interesting and versatile for that as well. Let's say you want to look up information about your own IP, right? Do Control L one more time. I can do Shodan, my IP, right? And before I hit enter, heads up, I'm just going to be showing you the IP of my what's called VPN that I'm using right now. So I'm going to hit enter, right? This is the current IP I have via my VPN. Let's use the command I showed you before on that. I'm going to Shodan host. And I'm going to use it on the IP address that I just got, right, from Shodan. All right. And now, this popped up. This means a couple things. One, it means that this specific IP has been scanned by Shodan before, right? That's one important thing to note. So if your IP pops up on this, just keep in mind Shodan is scanning your machine. Two, I see port 500 is open, right, which is pretty interesting. Right. So this is how to use it, not from a broad perspective, but more specifically on an IP. Another cool thing with Shodan I want to show, I'm going to do -- help again to pop it up. I want to show honey score, right? A lot of times, some lingo that you may be familiar with if you're in the cyber field is things will be set up as what is called a honeypot, right? A honeypot is when a defender sets up a system and they make it look real enticing for an attacker, right? And then when the attacker attacks the machine, what's really happening is that honeypot doesn't actually have any real information on it, right? Any real resources. The defender just gets a chance to analyze what the attacker did to break in and use that to defend their other system, right? So what Shodan does is it has something called honey score. It can actually tell us with a certain degree of confidence whether or not something is a honeypot, right? So first up, I'm going to use it on something that I know is probably not a honeypot, right? Once again, let me get that Reddit IP, right? I'm going to use it on Reddit.com, right? I know Reddit, this is just a website, probably not a honeypot, right? It's a real machine with real information. So I'm going to do Shodan honey score, and I'm going to do Control Shift V to paste that IP address and hit enter. Right, as I guessed, right, the score is 0.0 out of 10, right? So probably not a honeypot. Let me show you now a machine that is a honeypot and what that would look like. Right, I'm going to go to Shodan. I actually did this search before. All I looked for was webcams. Webcams are notorious, right, for being honeypots, right? And we actually see some markers here saying that it might be. I'm going to use this one from the UK, right, and check it out. So I'm going to do Shodan honey score. Now I'm going to Control Shift V and paste that IP address. And as we see here, out of 10, right, or excuse me, out of 1, it is a 0.8, which is probably a honeypot, right? With a certain degree of likelihood, this is a honeypot. You might be wondering, how do these systems tell? Well, with honeypots, some of the dead giveaways are a couple things. One, if it is left intentionally vulnerable to the point where it's obvious, right? Some services that nobody runs are still being run, right? That kind of can give it away. And then two, if there's no files on a system, right? It's not set up in a similar way to a normal machine, right? That can be also an indicator. Right? So that's pretty cool as well. All right, last thing I'm going to show for this video, because it's just basic Shodan queries and cool stuff to do with Shodan, I'm going to show you the stats page, right? So let me clear this out. I'm going to do Shodan -- help, right? And the last last keyword I'm going to show is stats here, right? Purpose of this, right? As we saw before, let's do with this Apache search, right? I'm able to see, for example, how many Apache servers are in the United States, right? I can do this via the graphic user interface, via this website, which means that I can do it via the command line too. So that's what I show, is how to generate a graph that looks like this via the command line. So I'm going to go back to my command line, Control L, right, to clear my screen. I'm going to do Shodan, stats. I'm going to do -- it's called facets, right? Facets, I don't know how to pronounce it. And then I'm going to give basically the two variables that I'm looking for, right? I'm going to use country and Apache, right? I'm going to do country and Apache. Now, when I hit enter, the chart I see below should match the one we just saw on Shodan, right? And as you see here, right, with these numbers, 8,055, around 8,055, 2293, around 2293, right? Keep in mind that this is being updated constantly, right? We get that same exact chart that we just saw there, right? So keep that in mind. Pretty interesting. I just updated and you see how the number changes, right? This is constantly fluctuating, right? But just showed you how that chart is generated. Right? Of course, this doesn't have to be an Apache system, right? You can also do this on Nginx, right? Or whatever other systems you're interested in. That's it. So this was Shodan in a nutshell, right? You see that last command just ran, giving us the country and the number of Nginx servers running. Right? This is Shodan in a nutshell on the command line. I'll probably come up with a more in-depth version of these commands, right, and give you a little bit more and more. But for a beginner perspective, right, this is a good start. So thank you for tuning in. Glad you enjoyed it. Once again, if you got this far and you're like, what? How is Shodan installed? I have no idea. That is last video, so feel free to click on that and watch that. But other than that, hope you all have a great day. It's always fun. Cool. Talk to you later.